In May of 1998, the ground in South Asia literally split open. India and Pakistan both conducted a series of successful underground nuclear tests, officially bringing the destructive power of atomic weapons to the subcontinent. For decades, international relations relied on a specific assumption: two nations armed with nuclear weapons will not fight a conventional war against each other. The logic is that any direct military conflict carries an unacceptable risk of escalating into total mutual destruction. That theory appeared to hold up perfectly. Less than a year later, on February 21, 1999, Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee boarded a bus and crossed the border into Lahore, Pakistan. There, he met with his Pakistani counterpart to sign the Lahore Declaration. This was a highly publicized treaty where both governments promised to resolve their disputes peacefully and exercise strict restraint over their newly acquired nuclear arsenals. But while the politicians smiled for the cameras and shook hands, a very different reality was taking shape in the freezing heights of the Himalayas. A covert military operation was already actively infiltrating Indian territory. 4 months before the peace summit, General Pervez Musharraf took command of the Pakistan Army. Almost immediately, Musharraf and 3 of his top generals, a group often called the Kargil clique, breathed life into Operation Vijay. This was a highly secretive invasion plan that previous Pakistani leaders had explicitly rejected. The generals were driven by a long-standing desire to retaliate against India. Back in 1984, the Indian military had seized control of the Siachen Glacier, a massive, unforgiving ice field located at one of the highest altitudes on Earth. Losing Siachen was a severe blow to the Pakistani military's pride. Operation Vijay required Pakistani troops to cross the line of control into the towering peaks of Kargil. From those heights, they could bombard National Highway 1A, India's only supply route to Siachen. Cutting off that road would starve Indian forces, forcing India to surrender the glacier. Operation Vijay was designed to hold a massive piece of geography hostage, forcing a territorial trade that would completely redraw the map of the region. To pull this off, the Kargil clique operated in absolute secrecy. They hid the plan from the Pakistani Air Force, the Navy, their own intelligence agencies, and even Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. They also exploited a long-standing gentleman's agreement with India. Because winter temperatures in the Himalayas frequently dropped to 40 degrees below zero, both armies routinely abandoned their highest, most exposed outposts in the fall and returned in the spring. Between November 1998 and early 1999, Pakistan broke that trust. They sent soldiers from the Northern Light Infantry, a paramilitary regiment recruited from the local mountainous regions, across the border to quietly occupy 132 empty Indian bunkers. To cover their tracks, the military dressed these regular soldiers in traditional civilian clothing. If discovered, Pakistan planned to claim the intruders were independent Kashmiri Mujahideen, local guerrilla fighters acting on their own, giving the government plausible deniability on the world stage. A rogue faction of 4 men had effectively hijacked their country's military apparatus. They used the protective shield of Pakistan's new nuclear arsenal to launch a covert invasion without the knowledge of their own head of state. By May of 1999, the snow began to melt. A local shepherd named Tashi Namgyal was walking in the mountains when he spotted men digging new bunkers into the ridges above his village and immediately alerted the authorities. The Indian Army sent patrols up the mountains to investigate, but they were quickly ambushed. At first, commanders on the ground assumed they were dealing with a handful of unorganized insurgents who could be cleared out in a matter of days. That illusion shattered on May 9th, when heavy artillery shells rained down on an Indian ammunition dump in Kargil. The incoming fire was highly coordinated and stretched across a 150-kilometer front. As Indian forces engaged the intruders, they recovered military identification and official documents from the casualties. This confirmed they were fighting regular Pakistani forces, exposing the cover story completely. General Musharraf and his inner circle had made a massive miscalculation. They firmly believed that because Pakistan now possessed nuclear weapons, India would be too terrified of the nuclear holocaust to mount a serious counterattack. Instead, India launched Operation Vijay. The military moved 5 entire infantry divisions and hundreds of aircraft into the region, mobilizing a massive logistical chain up the treacherous mountain roads to systematically blast the intruders off the peaks. The brutal, high-altitude conflict that followed lasted for months. The Kargil War proved that the threat of mutual destruction doesn't always guarantee peace. Sometimes it provides exactly the cover a rogue group needs to start a war.